In 2014, the Walt Disney Company published a large format reprint book called Disney Golden Age Comics. Now, this book does not reprint Donald Duck or Mickey Mouse or any of their well-known cartoon comic book characters. What it does reprint, however, are several of the classic four-color stories that reprinted adaptations of some of their most classic animated films. So let's talk about what's included in this book. The book presents the adaptations in the order that the films were premiered, not necessarily in the order that the comic books were actually published. The first comic book represented in this book is, of course, Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. Although the movie premiered in the 1930s, the first comic book adaptation was in Four Color Comics number 49 in July of 1944. This book reprints the Four Color number 49 comic book in its entirety, both the Snow White film adaptation and a second story that features Dumbo meeting the Seven Dwarfs. The cover on this particular comic book, Four Color number 49, was by the great Walt Kelly. The second comic book featured in this volume is Four Color Comics number 12 from 1942. Now, that's the second series of Four Color Comics, as was the Snow White book, Four Color number 49. The Bambi reproduction is an adaptation of the film, just like part of the Snow White book, and is a cover-to-cover reproduction of Four Color Comics number 12. The third comic book reproduced in this great volume is Four Color Comics' first series, number 17. This comic book was published in 1941 and was part of the original Four Color series. This book reproduces the adaptation of Dumbo that premiered at the same time as the comic book, 1941. Unlike the first two volumes, this particular reproduction only reprints the Dumbo story from Four Color Comics' first series, number 17, and does not reprint the other stories that were in that particular comic book. The next comic book reproduced in this volume is Four Color Comics number 331 from 1951, which is the adaptation of the film Alice in Wonderland. Four Color Comics 331 came out at the same time that the movie premiered in 1951, and this book reprints the comic cover to cover, including the wraparound cover that was featured on the original comic. The last comic book reproduced in this big volume is Four Color Comics number 442 from 1952, and that is a movie adaptation of Peter Pan. It also was premiered at the same time that the comic book hit the newsstands in 1952. This is a cover-to-cover reproduction of Four Color Comics number 442. Another unique feature of this large volume is the inside back cover, where you'll find an envelope that opens up to reveal large reproductions of each of the covers represented in this volume. These covers are larger than the original covers that were printed in the Golden Age of comic books and are missing the 10-cent prices.